Hey everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarin. I'm joined by Paul Thread, as I'm each and every week. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. It is almost over. All of this.
No, it's not.
The year is almost over.
I wish it was that simple.
Yeah, this is our best of show. We're going to discuss the best products, tech stuff, whatever comes to mind of the year. Last year we did our worst of, which everybody likes because we just sit there and we complain about how everything is awful and everything sucks. And this week we're gonna be pretty positive about things, but I'm sure it's gonna turn into a negative. Sure, you're gonna say something.
Let's try not to do that.
Yeah, let's try.
Although I do have a couple of side comments to make to the best of list. You know, for example, I would have thought that I could have come up with some kind of an Android phone this year that could have made the list, or mentioned Android 5 because that's kind of a big deal. But the truth is, those things don't excite me that much, and it's not because they're bad. You know, they don't deserve to be on the worst of list, but they just don't make enough of a difference to me.
See, I have an Android on my list.
Yeah,
I have an Android. Yeah, I do. I have an Android on my list.
I'm sorry.
And we'll talk about why I picked it. No, you know, it was an interesting year, and we spoke about this last week. We didn't have like these catastrophic company failures like we had seen in HP deciding that they were killing
Palm-style crash or
HP saying that they're killing the PC division or BlackBerry or, you know, any of these. We didn't have this.
The good old days, Andrew.
I know. I miss those days when we had stories that were just awful and companies were blundering.
Car crashes.
PR nightmares. I still can't get over the HP one. That
guy was bounced right out of that company after he did that.
I mean, that was amazing to me. That was the whole thing. They're like, we're not going to do any more computers. Yes, we are.
Yeah, and now sort of they aren't, right? I mean, they've really rejuvenated their PC business. In fact, I think that's one of the big stories of this year. But they're also spinning off that company, right? I mean, they're splitting it in half.
Yeah, they're splitting it in half. But you're right. They kind of revived that company, especially the PC division, by having one of the best low-end machines you could buy and one of the better higher-end machines you could buy as far as laptops go.
Right.
If you're going to buy a lower-end laptop, Asus is no longer the one I want to get. I want to get that HP.
There's a really neat-looking, I don't know the model, and I apologize for that, but there's a really neat-looking Surface-like HP that the keyboard, you know, kind of slaps onto the bottom like the Surface keyboard does. But you can also detach it, and it still works as a Bluetooth keyboard, which in retrospect is one of those amazingly obvious things. 13 and 15-inch versions, speakers on the side, so it has kind of a real widescreen look to it. And they're not super expensive. I think the i5 version is somewhere in the $800 range, you know, so it's not Surface Pro pricing. But yeah, they make some good stuff.
Do you want to go head first into Are you done with your holiday shopping before we go into our list?
Well, yes. But I think we talked about this last week, this notion of trying not to, you know, be stupid about spending money during the holidays. The truth is I haven't really bought that many presents at all. And that's sort of by design, you know. So my wife and I are exchanging very minimal gifts. I don't do a lot with friends because I don't have any friends and don't care about people. No, because, you know, we go out and do things.
Yeah.
And, you know,
So before we go on our list, I ordered this little thing here. I'm going to give it to Jess as a gift.
Is it like a little tripod-y thing that like moves around and stuff?
No, it's a Bluetooth remote shutter.
Okay. Yep.
It's to take a better selfie. Or you could use it if your camera's on a tripod. You could use this. I've never used it. It was like $4. It was like $3.99 on Amazon, and it came with Amazon Prime. And I got it today. And I'm going to try this out, I guess, in the next couple of days to see how good it is. But I thought it was a cool little device. I just wanted to show that because it just arrived.
Yeah.
You know, it may not work. Who knows? But it works. Cares? It works on both Android and iOS.
Stocking stuffer.
Yeah, that's it. That's all it is.
Stocking stuffer.
That's an awful word.
It's my first week at the new language.
Anyway. Do you want to go down a list?
Yeah, I kind of changed it from a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into like best of categories. You know, and I kind of wrote this on the fly, so I wasn't sure.
Okay. You want to go first?
the direction. But yeah, I mean, the first one I have, I've split the computer segment into two categories: affordable and then any price. And I think in the affordable range, I already wrote an article about this, so this is no shocker. The HP Stream 11 and 13 are just the most amazing values. If you think back to last year, I was talking about the Lumia 520. Remember, is that amazing budget phone, great value for the year. I look at these machines as that thing this year. The incredible value, no brainer purchase. $200 to $300, depending on the version, a variety of colors, solid build construction, lots of ports, decent battery life, but more important, well, as important, free Office 365 Personal, which is a $69 value, and a $25 Microsoft gift card. So these things are just the perfect gifts for kids. They're the perfect second computer. They're just wonderful little machines, and I'm really interested to see where HP expands this line going forward. Because if you think about HP's product lines, obviously they have Pavilion in the middle of the market, and Stream is their new low end market. And I'm curious to see.
What's amazing to me is that the lower end of the market, their laptop is far better looking than their mid range.
Yeah, a lot better.
So
that might change, going forward.
Yeah, I think the whole fanless thing helps a lot with that, and
yeah,
you don't have to go metal. You go, do a nice little plastic
Yep.
shell on this thing, and it's kind of MacBook.
If you throw an i5 and this would probably melt into liquid.
Yeah.
But the thing I like about it is you could hand it to a kid and not worry if they destroy it for two reasons. One, it seems pretty solid. I mean, that may not in fact be the case, but two, it's just inexpensive. So you're not handing him a MacBook Air. Could you imagine walking into a room with a little kid and he's like rocking back and forth on the MacBook Air like it's a sawhorse,
just stomping on that thing.
A rocket horse.
Yeah. I'm just curious on how this is changing. This is going to change how they sell laptops. When it's their higher end, their higher end devices are beautiful too. I mean, they look like MacBooks.
They can be.
Yeah, they could be. Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about like the Elite Book or whatever it is. There.
Yeah, some of them are. Yeah.
But Spectre, you still have that mid range that's hideous.
Right. Well, that's what I mean.
How do you fix that?
Well, you talk to the guys that made these computers. I mean, I think the reason these computers are notable is not because they cost $200 or $300, depending on the version. It's because they cost that much and are in fact so nice. Obviously, there's only so much you can do with componentry from a pricing perspective. They're going to have low-end Atom or Celeron or Pentium processors, depending on which computer we're talking about. I think these ones come with Celerons, actually. They're only going to have 2 gigs of RAM. They're going to have very low-end storage, 32 gigs of eMMC and so forth. There are lots of machines that have crappy specs. There's nothing special about that. The fact that these guys came into the market and released something that's really high quality is what's important here. Because I think a lot of times, you don't have a lot of money to spend on something. You're buying a car. Like just because I can't afford a BMW doesn't mean I should get like a wooden rickshaw. Like there should be some middle ground. And I think by providing the best possible value, which is why these things are such great machines, they've done something special. And I think other PC makers will emulate that. And I think they will emulate it in the other ranges of their products.
I mean, these are essentially the Chromebooks that HP has. They're the same exact thing,
yes
pretty much.
And no. So the interesting thing is, I think you could draw parallels because there are machines that kind of line up. I mean, actually, I think HP's 14-inch Chromebook is like a Tegra type chipset, so they don't actually line up exactly. It's not like they've taken the chassis and just used it with Windows. It's not exactly that, but yes, I mean, I think it's fair to say that they probably share a lot of components and so forth, but they have unique bodies and, and their Chromebooks look fine. They look like laptops. I mean, it's no surprise there that, nothing special, but they don't right now have like a Stream Chromebook, which is a little surprising, so for right now, this is, it's Windows only, it's laptops only, and obviously they have Stream tablets as well. It's just a great value, and that's why I honestly I think for me this would be number one. If I had to pick, if I were to order these things, to me this is the nice surprise of the year.
The Stream 13, in my opinion, is one of the better ones to get. Yeah. Because I remember 2 years ago I got just an IdeaBook, a Lenovo, and it wasn't a great Lenovo. The thing is not a high-end one at all, but because it has that slick Ultrabook style to it, I paid like crazy for this thing.
Yeah.
I paid like $600, and it's not a good computer at all. But she wanted something that was a little bit smaller and lighter than her MacBook, so I got this, and she never used it, because it was too slow for her. I think something like this with these newer, lower end machines, you kind of justify the $200, $249, and it's not going to be that great. When you're spending $500, $600, $700, you kind of want to get the better performance.
Right.
I'm curious if they're going to kind of push this year, where they kind of unify the entire lineup of HP devices. Because it seems like they're going in that direction, because they have the 11, they have the 13, they have the 14.
Right.
Why not expand that into, your entire line?
Well, I mean, you mean the look and feel of
the look and
stream
feel?
And so
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, these machines obviously are for consumers. They're for kids and schools and things like that. I mean, I think when you move into a business setting, I don't think, the typical business flyer wants to hop on the plane with his magenta pink Stream laptop and, pop open the, that thing in public. But I think there is room for a variety of styles and looks and feels and all that kind of stuff. But regardless of the exact look of it, I mean, I would like to see different colors for these things too. I think.
Oh no, absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, I think I think it's more of a theme kind of thing. Like they have latched on to what I believe is that sweet spot for value, which is the important thing, and that should be true of everything that they do and other companies do at whatever price point, and that may be different things for different price points. Someone who is going to spend $1,000 on a laptop, HP makes a tremendous gaming laptop, for example. Those guys are looking for very different things. And so I think you have to address the particular market and price segment as well.
I'm trying to see what HP, like Asus's response to this would be.
Well, Asus and probably Acer and Dell even and whatever. I mean, I think a lot of these companies will have a low cost, black typical plastic laptop.
Well, they have one. I'm looking at one right now. No, this is the Chromebook. Sorry. I was like, well, that's it. No, it's a Chromebook. Asus recommends Windows. That's really funny. They're showing an ad for a Chromebook, and on the corner it says Asus recommends Windows. That's really funny. The PC market, again, do we have, and I know this is veering off a little bit, but we still don't have like a definitive answer to what the future laptop is. It's not this concept where everything is going to be touchscreen, as we may have said 2 years ago.
I think ultimately everything is touchscreen. I think the only place you're not going to see touch is, for now, is these very low end devices. There is, in fact, a touchscreen version of the Stream. They actually also have a version that has LTE built into it. I think you can get touch and LTE actually. So, there's always room for some form of upsell, and I think touch makes a little bit of sense on a laptop type device, but where it really makes sense is on the screen where you can bend it back all the way over and it kind of goes into a tent mode, some kind of convertible transforming type PC. So I think that's just the upsell or whatever. So yeah, they're going to start non-touch, and it's whatever, it's going to be fine. Like I'm looking at Asus's site. I mean, they have actually an attractive color, 11.6 inch Windows 8.1 notebook.
Yeah,
an e-book, book. I don't see a price yet, but I assume this is in the $349 range, somewhere around there. Wait to see a price. I don't know. So anyway, but they're attractive.
Yeah.
And here you have a machine that has its own kind of design language and all that stuff, and that's fine. That's great. Good. That's good. Yeah,
they have a $399 2-in-1 for Dell. So I guess they're all trying this right now. Yeah. But HP seems to be doing really well with this.
For whatever reason, they were also kind of first out of the gate.
Yeah.
They were very quick to the market. I think that helps.
Yeah.
And I think this Christmas season is going to be, this holiday season is going to be a lot of HP Stream devices sold. I think this is going to be a big deal for them.
I know a bunch of people that bought one, so it seems like it's hot right now, and hopefully they'll continue with this and they'll improve it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was also on my list. I had the HP Stream 13 on my list, and right before the show we were talking about how you didn't have an Android device on, but I have an Android device on it, and that's the OnePlus One.
Right.
I don't have it on the list because they're doing something really special with the hardware, because they're not. It's a upper mid-range to flagship phone. At this point, it's probably not the highest one because it's been out for a while now. But When this came out, it was a flagship phone. It had flagship components, and it was unsubsidized for $299. So you bought it and you brought it and you connected it to T-Mobile or AT&T, and you had a higher end phone without having to go and buy the phone or sign a contract. The reason why I have this on the list is because I was hoping we would see more of this, especially from companies like Amazon that released the phone, which we spoke about last week, which was a total blunder. But Paul, I'm going to ask you a question now. Have you seen these new pricing structures for AT&T?
No.
Okay.
Which ones?
The next plan.
Oh, I've seen that.
Okay.
We talked about this a little bit last week.
Yeah. So it's confusing to a lot of people. I would rather just buy a phone flat out and not worry about a monthly charge for the phone. Just bring it over.
Yeah, but this is when I'm in the process of writing up kind of a tech prediction thing, and I'm not getting too sci-fi into it. It's not like flying cars and stuff, but I think one of the big trends for the near future is going to be, in the United States at least, is going to be our move from our traditional cell phone buying scheme, 2-year contract, subsidized phones, to what you're talking about and what much of the rest of the world does. It takes a while to get there because, people, I don't mean to say people are dumb, but I mean, I think, people look at it and they say, but I can get this phone for $0 down, or I can get an iPhone for $99. And it's like, no, you're not really paying $99 for the iPhone. You're paying like $2,000 for the iPhone. But you're paying for it over time, asking that person to spend up front, $350 for a low end phone, $650, $700 for a high end phone. It's tough, T-Mobile has kind of those plans that are in the middle, right? Where you pay an extra each month until the phone's paid off, and then you stop paying that extra amount.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a half step in that direction.
I don't know. I think a lot of people are confused with this. I think a lot of people don't understand how those plans work and what the subsidized cost is and what's not the subsidized cost. I think something like this, I don't know if we had it on the list last week. I can't remember, but the Nexus 6 should have been unsubsidized, but it wasn't.
Right.
The thing was like every other phone. It was totally expensive, and people justified it somehow.
I was really surprised by that.
I heard somebody was trying to justify it in a way. I remember when they announced it, like, well, that one didn't have something. And I was like, it's such a baloney thing. These things are not worth $800.
No.
It's impossible. And I don't care how much research and R&D spending has gone into it. It's not $600. It's not $700.
Yeah.
We got to realize that the pricing is out of control for these phones, but that's why I like this phone. It's a smaller company. They're able to do this. They're producing it as they're going along. It's an invite only, and they open it up sometimes, but it's a great phone. I mean, it's become my everyday phone at this point. And it's Android.
We probably discussed this briefly, but if you go back, whenever the last iPod Touch was released, which might have been 3 years ago. So this thing probably debuted alongside the iPhone 5, if I'm doing my version number correctly. An iPod Touch costs a couple $100, $300, $400, something like that, somewhere in there. An iPhone 5 at the time was, 5, 6, 7 more,
But it's the radio, Paul. Come on.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So in other words, what's the real price differential there, right? If you could get an iPod Touch that had a bigger battery, I think would be part of it, and that radio. I mean, how much additional cost are we talking here for the device? I mean, obviously you have to pay for the service, but there's a certain gouging going on with these smartphones that I just don't think is justified by what you're getting.
Oh, yeah, because they can. That's the whole thing. Because they could do it.
Stuff. Yeah, I just don't.
I don't either. It really drives me nuts that still happens in 2014. Maybe 2015 is going to be the year. I was looking at some of the cell phone plans that they offer, and I'm thinking, who's getting 2 gigs? Who's getting that plan?
Right.
With data. Like on a family plan. Who's getting the 2 gig family plan? I'm sure there are a lot of people doing it, but why not? Why would you just not bump everybody up? Start at like 10 gigs and say, okay, this is the price.
Right.
I guess, they need to make money too, right? That's what it comes down to.
Do they?
Yeah.
Do they?
What else do you have?
This one will be a little quicker. I mean, best computer, any price. I mean, there are 2 that stick out in my mind this year, and I've reviewed a ton of computers this year. One is a Surface Pro 3, which I think is notable for a number of reasons. It finally is a Surface device that people want. the right size, the right shape, like right weight, right performance.
If you could
options
change
and
something
stuff.
about that device, what would it be?
The only one thing I would change would be, well, two things. The biggest one though is the screen. I like that they finally went with a bigger screen. It's not quite ultrabook size. You really need a 13-inch screen for an ultrabook. That would be the big thing. I would change nothing. If I could just change one thing, I would take that. But the two other things I'd like to see change would be a real keyboard option, not just a type cover, but an actual physical keyboard.
Yeah.
And then just like one more USB port, please. I mean, one USB port on a device of this caliber makes no sense. But again, it's such a major advance forward. So I think that's a big deal. The other one, this may surprise people a little bit, but part of it's just because of where we are in the model release timeframe and so forth. But is Lenovo's Yoga 3 Pro, which I've written most of my review of, but I've not posted yet.
Okay.
When you're looking at a machine that is designed for road warriors, it's not for people who edit video, play video games, do CAD CAM work, or maybe not even developers or whatever, but people who use a computer for productivity software, email, Office, Photoshop, light Photoshop. This machine is the perfect size, perfect weight. And again, there are these kind of niggling things about it. But it's just, the battery life is fantastic. I love the form factor. The surface on which you rest your palms is this kind of dimpled, rubber grippy kind of surface that I love.
Do you like this better than the Surface?
Yeah, because the screen is bigger. And for the way that I use a computer, I think the one interesting side effect that the proliferation of tablets and smartphones has had on the PC is that it allows us to use it as a PC. We don't have to do all these other things on it. And so we can stick to it strictly for work. I think the Surface tagline, the tablet that can be or the tablet that can replace your laptop or whatever it is, okay, that's cute. But the truth is, for a tablet, I want a different kind of device. I don't want a Windows device. But when it comes to work, I do want a Windows device. And I feel like 13-inch, ultra thin, thin and lay completely flat if you wanted to. It does all the contorting stuff as well, of course. It's yoga. I think they really hit a sweet spot with this one. And
it's a pretty looking laptop.
Because I know how you think of things, and I wrote this in my review just for you. The bezel on this thing is too big.
It's
too
big.
Think that it's too big. They could
big.
easily fit a 14-inch screen on this thing.
Yeah.
I can only guess the reason is battery life that they didn't, but there is plenty of room for that. I hope to see them add that next year. I mean, every device you could point to and say, well, I wish, here's the upgrade that would make it perfect. But I think, this is, for that amount of money, and these things, I think they cost about $1,100 to $1,400. And so they're in the mid to high range Surface price range, or mid Surface price range. I would probably pick this over the Surface Pro 3.
In that price range, right, for like $1,200, $1,300, are these the laptops that are being sold? Is this what the consumers are going and buying when they're spending that much money?
If you were to make a chart of what people are buying, they're actually not buying these machines that much, because that's too much money. People don't spend that much money on computers. But for the people who do, for that kind of minority part of the segment, it might be, it's going to be people who travel a lot, because you want something that is full-sized, full power, but you slip it into your bag and you don't really notice it. The Surface Pro 3 actually is perfect for that. The Lenovo Yoga 3 Plus, 3 Pro rather, is also very good for that. But you want it to have lots of RAM, lots of storage, lots of performance, lots of battery life. You want all these things. And I think the mainstream of the computer market, the consumer PC market, the people who are going into Best Buy or Amazon or whatever, they're buying low-end machines.
Yeah.
And they're using them at home. And it doesn't matter what the battery life is. Like the HP Streams actually get pretty good battery life. It doesn't matter. You're always within 2 feet of a power cord.
Yeah.
Does not matter. These devices, that kind of thing matters.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very attractive laptop.
Yeah.
It's amazing how Apple's kind of fallen behind with this, right? With the aesthetics of their device, with their laptops.
Yeah, you're right. So on the one hand, I give Apple a little bit of credit. Obviously, the MacBook Air is the template by which all Ultrabooks are stamped. And so there is a little bit of a timeless quality to those machines. That said, I also look at a 13-inch MacBook Air and I think, A lot of bezel there. They could fit a 14-inch screen in there. Wouldn't that be interesting?
By the way, we're making a drinking game. The viewers have started a drinking game with every time
bezel.
we say bezel, they take a shot.
Yep. Excellent.
Yeah.
I wish I had a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's something you notice. I mean, I think on machines where they get the bezel right, it is attractive looking. Where they get it wrong, you notice it because there's this big plain area of color. You know, it's like you're looking into a little portal in a giant piece of plastic. You know,
well, I mean, you see that on the mid-range or the lower range Windows laptops. I'm curious on what HP's doing with their higher end and what their bezel is like.
Right.
Let me see here. We're going to get you really drunk on this bezel talk, guys.
The laptop I was talking about earlier, the one that looks like a Surface, whose name I can't remember.
It's an HP one?
Yeah, it's a very wide device. And one of the ways they handle the bezels is they have speakers, like front-facing speakers. You can see the grill holes on the sides. And so it's a little wider this way from a bezel perspective. But actually, the effect is very attractive because, you know, you can see the function.
Okay, thin and light. I got to look on thin and light, right? All these have gigantic bezels. Let's see, bezel. They all have big bezels.
They do. All of them, yeah.
Maybe we haven't reached that point.
No, it's got to be a battery life thing, right? Why wouldn't they have the nicest possible, biggest screen they could fit, right? I mean, it's got to be related to that.
With a battery life. Yeah, I guess so. Well, hopefully that'll improve this year.
But yeah, that's
yeah. So I guess that was yours. The Lenovo Yoga 3 Pro and the Surface 3 Pro. Now for tablets, I think we have the same tablets on our list. I didn't put it, but I was imagining you would. iPad Air 2 and the iPad Mini 3. I still don't think, as far as a true tablet goes, there's anything better than this.
Yep.
Aesthetically, very good looking. Performance-wise, phenomenal. The ecosystem, everybody knows what's there and what's not.
Every year Apple announces these things, and they're always thinner and lighter and better and magicaler and whatever they talk about. And after the iPad,
5 million transistors.
Yep. There's always some kind of a video with an English-speaking gentleman, whatever. But I went into the Apple store after the iPad Air 2 was announced, and it's supposed to be thinner and lighter and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, this is bullshit. Like, no one's going to be able to notice a difference, And so I went in and I picked it up, and I was like, okay, actually, this is, in fact, thinner and lighter. The iPad Mini 3 is not thinner or lighter. It's exactly the same. So they didn't change the box there at all. They obviously get the Touch ID. But the reason that these are the best in some ways is not so much because of what Apple did, because, frankly, there isn't a huge difference between these tablets and last year's versions. It's what their competition didn't do. There are nice Windows tablets. There are no Windows tablets of that caliber from a build quality perspective, not even close. But you could make an argument for certain devices because of price and so forth, like an HP Stream 7 or 8, starting at $99.99. That's a tremendous bargain. The problem is the ecosystem on those devices is horrible. It still is. 2 years later, it's still terrible. I can't recommend that anyone buy such a device as much as I'd like to be able to recommend a Windows device. And then the Android thing, I don't know what is going on there, but I don't know that I've ever seen, not that this means anything, but you don't see people using Android tablets very much for some reason. I've used a lot of them, and I think I might know why. They're just not very interesting. And I bought a Nexus 9 this past fall, which is their new full-size tablet, right? And it doesn't do anything for me. And there's a keyboard you can buy for it. You can see it at Best Buy. It's super low quality. I thought I would get this and be able to run Office on it, and at least I could have it for that kind of testing.
What would be an Android? Is it the Galaxy line?
Yeah, I think the mainstream Android tablets are going to be the Samsungs. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go look at that.
And there's different versions because they have tabs and I think they have notes. Yeah,
tabs and notes. So I guess a note is a larger one.
Not necessarily. It's very confusing.
What is a bushel and what is a peck?
The HP laptop thingies that I couldn't remember, they're actually called NV15 and NV13X2. That's the name of those. So it's like NV13X2, NV15X2. Okay, they start at about $800.
Galaxy Notes and Galaxy Tabs. The Galaxy Notes they go up to 10.1 inch, but it's generally the phones.
I believe Samsung actually makes a 12 something inch, Pro tablet.
Yeah. So let's go. I think that's the Tab. And then we're going to go, they have a 12.2 inch. So let's go to the 10.1 to 1.5. I mean, they're pretty. They're nice. 1600 by 2560. Very thin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
9-hour battery life, but
they make versions for Barnes and Noble as well.
I don't know one person that has this. I'm going to be honest.
I know. And my very first Android device, possibly, and certainly Android tablet, was a Samsung. It was like probably a 7-inch, whatever, years ago. And it's fine. I mean, there's something about Android that just is not. It's not that it's bad. It's just not interesting.
It's not that it's bad. It's just not good.
I just can't get it. I can't quite put my finger on it. It doesn't excite me, and I feel a little weirded by it.
Well, you know what? Tom in our chat said Sony has some really nice looking tablets. He's absolutely right.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Yeah, they're really pretty. They also have great looking phones.
Problem with Sony, as Dr. Evil pointed out on SL this weekend, is that they haven't had a hit since the Walkman.
Yeah,
and there is Sony. I've always thought that they made really good stuff. I'm
on their website right now. I'm trying to find it.
Go to sonystyle.com or
store.sony. Store.sony. Okay, let's look at this. The Xperia tablet Z2. It's slick, gigantic bezel. Forget you. Their phones look nice. I like their Sony phones. Unlocked Android phones. They got a smartwatch.
Yeah. And it's waterproof because you need that in a tablet.
Yeah, for when I'm taking selfies in the shower and Snapchatting it. Nice. It'll be perfect. It's a perfect phone for you if you want to Snapchat in the shower. Get that in the Samsung Galaxy S5 because that's waterproof also.
I'm sure these guys make great tablets. I don't know what's going on with Sony. It's just a shame. Although this is very expensive.
You know what? How do you fix Sony? We should dedicate an entire show to this.
We're not going to be able to fix Sony because we're Americans. I mean, part of the problem with Sony is a cultural thing. I don't know. I don't know how you fix Sony.
This looks. I mean, it's a nice looking tablet.
Sony is like a car maker. They have a design language, and it's the same design language they've had for like 25 years or something. They really need to adopt a new look and feel, and go like Audi did, and just turn. I don't know what that design is. That's the problem. But they need to have their own identity, and it needs to be one that isn't what their identity is now. Because I think people look at this stuff and they go, ugh, it's just the same stuff.
But you know what's crazy? It's not even considered from most people. Like most people don't even consider Sony anymore.
Well, that's a big fall for a company that used to be, when you went into any store, Best Buy, Costco, whatever, and you were going to buy like a nice TV, you got the Sony one because you knew that was the nice one. And they're not even really in the conversation anymore.
Yeah, it's sad because they make good stuff. It's just not marketed right to the US.
Yeah.
We did the iPad. Best smartphone for your list, Paul. I have a different.
I'll do the low end ones, and you can take the high end. So
go ahead.
At the very low, and by the way, this is kind of US centric, of course, because I live here. Obviously, I tend toward the Windows Phone stuff. So, looking at the market for low end smartphones, the logical successor this year to the Lumia 520 from last year, which was really overall the best value in technology, I think, of 2013, is the Lumia 635. And it's not quite the no-brainer that the 520 was, but slightly better screen, some other improvements. It's a nice little device. It can be had off contract, I think, right now for about $99. It's a great value, and for all the same reasons the 520 was. You can use it as a phone. You can use it as a second phone. You can give it to a kid as a phone. Use it as a media player. You can use it as an offline GPS. I mean, there's all this awesome stuff you can do with it. Micro SD expandable and so forth. Very inexpensive. In the mid-range, there is no such thing as a mid-range iPhone unless you're going to buy like last year's model. Yeah. There are mid-range Android devices. I don't have a lot of experience with that stuff, so I don't really feel qualified to say where I would fall there. But on the Windows Phone side, it's the 830 and the 735. The 830 is available in the United States right now. I think it's on AT&T, and it's going to be in other places. The 735, I think, is going to pop up in a bunch of places, but it's not happening until early 2015. So you'll be able to get it on Verizon and some other places. These phones are both great in their own right. And what they've done here is you have phones that have kind of low to mid-level specs, but they've brought features down from the high-end phones of the past. So they have great cameras, for example. The 735 is a great front-facing camera with a wide angle lens that captures more information when you're doing kind of a selfie type thing. I have been using a 735 for a couple of months now. I actually just switched to the 830 for a variety of reasons, mostly for testing purposes. But the 830 has an even better camera. It's going to have some of the high-end camera features that are coming in Lumia Denim, which is the new firmware update, which actually there's a version of on the phone, but there's also more improvements coming later. And so I think these are value phones. 735, $300, I think, off contract. And the Lumia 830 is probably more in the $450 range, which is a little too expensive for that device. But you can get it unlocked at Expansys, for example, for $350. And at that price, I think we're talking.
Justifiable. For me, I put the iPhone 6 and the 6 Plus.
And the 6 Plus.
And the 6 Plus. I do feel that, and here's my issue. The 6 should have been 5 inches.
I
get why they made it a little smaller. I get it, but like for me, like if I was going to go buy an iPhone, I don't have an iPhone that I would want because the 5.5 inch is too bulky for me.
It's way too big. Yeah,
and I have a 5.5 inch phone, and this is not as big as the iPhone.
Yeah, it's a big slab of phone.
Yeah, and the 4.7 is too small.
I don't use it every day. My son has one, but I obviously I agree with you. I wish it was 5 inches. But that said, maybe it's because of the bezel. Everyone's drunk now.
Everybody take your 8th shot in the last 20 minutes.
On the iPhone 6 Plus, that bezel makes that phone seem like an 8-inch tablet. On an iPhone iPhone 6, the bezel makes the 4.7-inch device seem like a 5-inch device or bigger. I would just say from a form factor perspective, not exactly the screen, but just the size of the phone, holding it in your hand, the normal 6, the non-Plus 6, is as perfect as I've ever seen in a smartphone. Width, height.
It feels good.
Yeah, the density of it, it's not like a piece of lead. It feels solid, but it's not heavy. It's just a beautiful, beautiful phone.
It's a phenomenal phone. I think I'm going to get it for Jess actually tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because she's on the 5 and she barely wants to let go of it, but the battery has gone to such crap. I mean, I'm not exaggerating this. I would probably say she gets 2 hours of battery life.
Well,
without use, just idle.
Right.
Like it just goes right out. I mean, and she's brought it back to them a couple times, and this is like the 3rd replacement that they've given her. I think those 5s had a lot of problems. Okay. So I think it's time for her to get a new one, and I think it's going to be the 6. But she did bring up something. She's like, "Well, is there anything else I could get? I don't know if I want an iPhone. Maybe I want something else." And I said, "No, There's nothing else you could get."
Yeah, there really isn't.
I mean, that's the sad part. I know people are going to say, "Well, how about Windows Phone? How about no?"
Yeah.
Not for her.
I mean, Moto X is kind of in there. Nexus 6 is too big. Maybe a Note 4. That's a pretty looking phone. My wife will get that sometime early next year, and I'll look at it then more than I have so far. But maybe,
Defeated Windows Phone Defender in our chat room says, "I have that's a great name too. Right. I have a 6.3-inch Android phone, and my 6 Plus is practically the same size."
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big phone. It's a big, big phone.
The Lumia 1520 is a 6-inch phone.
Yeah. I still say that the best phone on the market right now is the iPhone. It's easy to use, and you don't have to worry about,
Yeah, it has all the apps. It's
crashes
got the best ecosystem.
of the OS.
It's got a great camera. Form factor is amazing. Battery life is great.
You know what's amazing? Like whenever I say something negative about Android, and I'm an Android user, so I get to say this, right? Because I use it every day.
Right.
I was trying to take a picture the other day.
Sorry.
We had family over. I was trying to take a picture. And I gave this example the other day about how they couldn't focus in. I had my camera app crash on me 2 times in a row. And I'm thinking, that does not happen on iOS. I'm sorry. That's not happening on iOS. Why does the camera app crash on this phone? Someone explain that to me. What am I doing wrong that my camera app crashes at launch? Insane. Best consumer service. I didn't have this on my list, but I probably would agree with you on this. But I have turned into a Google Docs user, Google Drive user over the last 2 years. Sadly, I no longer use Office at all.
Really?
Just due to sheer convenience of being in Gmail and just clicking on the Drive button. I still think that there's definitely a place for... but you know what's interesting? If I'm writing something very important, I'll do it in Office. So what does that say?
Right.
But you have OneDrive and Office 365 as the best consumer service. It was a big year for them.
Right.
A lot of changes to their practice as far as how they handle Office.
Yeah, I thought about breaking this down into different things. I thought about just talking about Microsoft consumer services in general. But when I think about this year and all the changes and everything, I think the big one is Microsoft made cloud storage a feature, not a service. You know, in other words, instead of saying I need storage for some reason, I would like to buy some storage and then finding a place, they attached it to Office 365. And both the consumer and the business versions of Office 365, which I think is particularly cool. And so if you have the consumer version, which is what I really care about, you know, you're doing email through Outlook.com and calendar and contacts and so forth. And your online storage is through OneDrive. And this has gone up and down over the years. It's kind of funny, the storage allotments and so forth. But right now, well, they haven't actually made the switch over, but they announced this year that they're, if you're an Office 365 subscriber, you get unlimited OneDrive.
That's unbelievable.
For the course of the year.
That's unbelievable.
It's $99 for Office 365 Home. It's $69 for Personal. Personal is like a one computer kind of thing, obviously. Although you could access that OneDrive storage from any computers. But the Home version for $99 is for 5 people. It's amazing, and they all get unlimited storage on OneDrive.
Yeah, so
there is no
that was the
offer
question
like
I
this
had.
anywhere in the world. I
So
mean,
that was
crazy.
my question to you. Have they rolled that out fully right now?
No, so it's rolling out in stages. And the way it works now is that everyone who is on Office 365 will get a minimum of 1 terabyte immediately. If you start adding content to it, like I've been doing, because I'm trying to pump everything I have up into OneDrive, they'll bump you up to 10 terabytes. And if you get close to 10, I don't know what happens after that. I assume they go up to 100.
20, I have 25 on mine, I think, or
Oh, you do?
100. Yeah, it's something ridiculous, like
It's something
25 or
stupid,
yeah.
Okay, so they're bumping and bumping and bumping, and sometime next year it will just be unlimited, you know, for everybody. You won't have to even think about it, and you still don't today. I mean, I've been loading this thing up as much as I can. So yeah, I just think this is an amazing thing, and of course it ties in nicely to this what Microsoft calls the mobile first, cloud first world that we live in, and the theory being that, you know, mobile devices are going to be the mass market for computing, how people consume computing services, and cloud services are going to be the mainstream for where those computing services come from, not from on-prem servers, not from things on your computer, but from the cloud, and so. You see these Windows devices like the Streams that have 16 or 32 or even 64 gigs of storage, but you have unlimited storage up in the cloud, and you can stream all of your content down to the device. You don't have to necessarily have offline versions of that stuff. So it's kind of an amazing thing. I mean, I guess I would say, you know, people are naturally or unnaturally concerned about this stuff. You know, there are people who are very used to the old way of doing things. I could never put everything in the cloud, you know. But just to give you, this is one of a million examples, maybe, or one of 100 examples. But if I'm going to go sit on my couch and I'm going to watch a movie that, you know, today or yesterday might have been on a home server in my cellar, and I'm going to stream it over my Wi-Fi network, what's the difference between that and sitting down in front of the TV with the remote and the same device and streaming it from OneDrive. You know, what's the difference? I'm at home. I'm on the internet. You know, I don't pay extra for that. It's just, I get the same internet no matter what I do with it. Why does it have to be in the cellar? Why do I need to take, you know, why manage that computer or server? Why manage that hard drive that might fail? Why would I have to worry about this
Okay,
stuff?
so that's a good question. Why would someone not want to do it?
Because they don't trust things. They're not trusting. Now, I would say for certain, now the video I'm talking about is not a precious home video of my, you know, son's first steps or something. It's a goofy comedy, you know, starring Seth Rogen and what's his face. It doesn't, you know, it's just a movie. I don't really care. So I mean, if OneDrive gets nuked by the North Koreans or whatever, I guess oh well. If you're talking about something that really matters to you, your personal photos, very important work data, perhaps, although in that case, your work should be handling that. Yes, I mean, you need redundancy for things. It makes sense to have things in different places, not just on different hard drives, but in different physical places, right? Now, that might mean different cloud services. It might mean some notion of like a deep backup at Amazon and then your normal archive that you access regularly on OneDrive. There are 150 different ways to do that. It doesn't really matter what the details are.
Yeah.
But redundancy is important if it's important to you. And I think getting it in the cloud. If you live in a first world nation, I mean, I realize there are people on nuclear subs and people who live in North Korea that can't just stream whatever they want from the internet. And I'm not talking to you. You know what your problems are. I'm just for the mainstream part of America and Western Europe and wherever else where internet connections are cheap and readily available. Yeah, put it in the cloud.
I mean, that's what we did with YouTube. I mean, that's how everything on YouTube is in the cloud.
Yeah. Well, you know,
I know people that used to hoard like little stupid videos that they used to find somewhere on like
of course.
Online,
and I still have this. I still have those things in goofy archives, and that's what I'm trying to get rid of. And you kind of declutter digitally in this case. We used to talk about people who micromanage their MP3 collections and all the metadata and stuff, and those people are still out there. I get that. It's fine.
Paul, you're gonna be shocked. I've moved over to Spotify. Have you heard of this thing? It's unbelievable.
Yes,
this Spotify is unbelievable. Everything that you want is on there.
Yes, not everything, but
a
lot. That's the point. So, well, but there's always like a middle ground of sanity to be had. You have to do a little bit of work, but let's face it. If you were micromanaging your MP3 collection, you're used to doing a little bit of work. You do a little bit of work every day. So what's the difference? And what I mean by that is, take the time to go to, it doesn't matter which, Spotify is a great example. Xbox Music, if you're a Microsoft guy, is even better, I think. Beats Music will do this as well. Whatever. It depends on what devices you use, but it doesn't matter. Go to that service and start adding I don't mean like taking your music and putting it in the cloud, but look at the service, search the store, find the artist you care about, add those albums and that music into your collection in the service. And then note the couple of things that they don't have that you have. Maybe you bought all of the Beatles albums. They aren't anywhere except on iTunes. Maybe you have, it doesn't matter what other, the Beatles are a great example. Those things you will have locally, right? When I set up a new Windows Phone on my computer, one of the things that I do is copy the Beatles music into it because the Beatles are not available on any service on Windows Phone, but I paid for that stuff. So I don't micromanage all of my music. I just micromanage this small part of my music, you know? It's a kind of a happy middle ground.
Like I have stuff. What I've done, I never play music on my Mac from iTunes anymore. I've been using Spotify. Like the other day, my friend has like all the songs. I didn't have my music on my laptop, so I installed Spotify because I know my friend is on there and her taste in music is exactly like mine is. And I went through her playlist, and everything is sorted out on our playlist. And I just went through the playlist with Jess, and we were having wine, and we're listening to all the songs, and everything was on the cloud, and I have Spotify. I don't need to have the physical data on my laptop anymore. And I freed up, 20, 30 gigs.
If you are a guy, like you're talking about a situation you're at home, but, on a Mac or a PC, which are computers, right? You kind of get all the gunk off of it. You use that thing for work. But if you do want to listen to music on it, you could have an app like you're doing. You could do it on the web, probably. I mean, on Xbox you can. When I travel with a laptop, it doesn't matter. I happen to use a PC, but it could be a Mac. It would be the same situation. That stuff's on my phone. That's where I listen to music. You know, the iPad I carry has other things on it that are entertainment related, reading, you know, movies and stuff like that. And the work stuff's on the PC. I also think this cloud system helps you maintain some sort of separation between work and play.
Yeah. No, you're
And
absolutely
people
right.
go kicking and screaming, but
And I
this
think
is
they will for a long time. I mean, this is
yeah.
this is something that's going to happen for a while because
Yes, yes.
it's a mentality that's been that we've been living with for a long time with hoard. I mean,
Sure.
physically hoarding and digitally hoarding.
Do you ever watch the show Deadwood?
I have seen it like a couple times, but I've never really.
Okay, so
watched
Deadwood
it.
is one of the best TV shows ever made. But the short version is frontier town, Montana, sometime in the 1800s. It's still not part of the United States. It's like a territory. They're trying to become a state, I think, at the time. So it's Wild West in every conceivable way imaginable. And there's a great scene in one of the shows where the main character, is standing up on this porch, and he's watching people build these poles into the ground, and the poles kind of come from nowhere, and they come down into the town, and they're stringing wires on them. And so the guy who works for him comes up and says, "What is that thing?" And he's like, "Oh, it's a telegraph." He's like, "What's that for?" And he says, "Well, people send messages back and forth. So this way, you know, if someone sends a message, you can reply immediately."
Yeah.
So he sort of thinks about this because you got to remember the technology at the time was letters. You know, people send letters.
Yeah.
back
How
and
are
forth.
you getting it over this wire?
He didn't understand it, but more to the point, he said, but it was a beautiful response. Basically, I'm paraphrasing. He says, "Why would I ever want to send a response immediately? I want to sit down and formulate my response and make sure it's perfect before
That's
I
so
send it."
funny.
So he didn't, you know, it's the same sort of anti-march of progress mentality. Well, why would I want to do it that way? I already do it this way. You know, the way that things were when I happened to come of age is the right way to do it. Of course, you know, it's the familiar way.
I have a relative that treats email like text messaging.
Oh yeah.
No header, no subject
yeah.
line, just like 2 words in the line.
My wife's grandmother used to send emails that were like letters. You know,
Yeah.
Dear Stephanie.
Yeah.
You know,
Dearest.
yeah, and then it would be like love. You know, and
Yeah.
it was like this formal letter.
The winter is coming.
Yes, exactly. Please find enclosed a knitted sweater to wear for the winter.
Yeah.
Yep.
The best streamers, Paul. This one is I have one on my list, but we'll go into detail. Roku 3. It's not new in 2014, but it's still
if I had to
doing
pick
well.
one, that would be the one. Yeah.
See, people think I'm crazy, but I really like the Fire TV.
You know what though? I'm coming around to
See?
your idea because I'm using the Fire TV stick here in the office now. And I think I told you this. The performance is dramatically better than was the case with the Roku streaming stick. This is the stick. I do have an Amazon Fire TV out in the living room, which I'm not using regularly, but I don't know. I'm getting used to it. I can see this one.
I just got the Apple TV, and I'm like, the only way I'm going to really use this thing if I disconnect the Apple TV, and this is what I'm using, and I like the UI better for almost all the applications that I'm using because Apple does their own little thing there.
Yeah.
I just installed a Roku 3 for a friend, and it's nice, but they need to do something. It has to be an overhaul with this device.
Yeah, it's right.
The benefit of Roku is the fact that there's so many applications developed for it, third party and major networks, where there's something always for somebody. And the other guys really don't have that. Apple TV doesn't really have that, have third-party applications. You can with the Fire, but there's not a lot developed for it. And the only other one that could possibly be a competitor in that field is Google, and they're not doing anything.
Nope. And when they do anything, no one cares.
No one cares. So
yeah, right.
I actually got a review from one of our viewers on he reviewed the Nexus player after we were talking about it last week. And he said it's one of the most incomplete devices that he's ever used. It totally feels like it was just put together, and there you go. Here it is.
Here's what's weird about that. When the Chrome Cast came out last year, that's exactly how I would have and probably did describe it.
Yeah.
And I kind of panned the thing because there was nothing going on there at all. And people will say, "Oh, you don't get it, Paul. It does this and it does that." And you're right.
You know what the benefit was? You know what the but was? The price.
No. It was $29 or whatever, $35. So I whatever. I don't care. I mean, I use these things in the living room all the time. And by the way, I use a Chromecast, not regularly, but fairly regularly. It's out there. It's plugged in, and it's all connected. That device has gotten a lot better over time, and so I think the conversation on Chromecast has changed. I still think it has some fundamental flaws. The primary one being the lack of a dedicated remote control, which I think is just stupid in this day and age. But whatever. That the what's it called? The Nexus Play.
Right? Player
has arrived in market in the same shape. Does not surprise me. But it's interesting to me how Google TV and Android TV and Google Play and whatever that Nexus Q thing was and yada, yada, yada. Like, it's weird to me how often they don't get this right. And I'm really confused by this. It just seems like the type of thing that all they have to do is show up. They already have all these people using their devices. Just make an Android living room device. Simple.
Well, they have that with the player. That's the player, right? That's the living room device.
Should be.
It should do really well. Unfortunately, it's
no one seems to care.
I know. I don't know why, because not enough people have used it to say it sucks. It just, even if it does suck, you don't know because you've never used it. I just think, the market is so saturated between the Roku and the Apple TV and this Fire TV's doing well. I think it's just so saturated that you're not even thinking twice. And top it all, most people are just doing Netflix on it, and most TVs that you buy nowadays has Netflix. No matter how it's an awful experience, the smart TV applications, but the TV has it already. So why do you care?
Right.
I think that's the biggest uphill battle that all these guys are going to face. That Samsung is putting a smart app on every TV, and Vizio's doing it, and
I mean, fundamentally, that's the problem with Roku. I mean, at some point, you've kind of saturated the market with the number of people who want this kind of device. And when if you had a Roku 2, you wouldn't buy a Roku 3 typically. I mean, I did because that's what I do, but most normal people wouldn't. And so I think the Roku 3 has been incredibly successful for them, but it also kind of begs the question, what's the differentiator on a Roku 4? And I just don't know what that might be.
A new UI?
I mean, obviously more processing power gets them to something that's more interesting. I think one of the advantages of the Amazon thing is because the processing is faster,
super fast,
more RAM and all that kind of stuff. Well, it lets them do more with the UI. The Roku is kind of bare bones. But that said, I mean, I kind of like that because I'm not there to look at stuff. I want to get by this to the content. The Amazon one, the issue I have is just the Amazon centricity of it, but. For a lot of people, that's a plus, not a minus.
So I had one more on the list, and then we'll wrap it up for today. Mm-hmm. I have the Verizon XLTE. They launched it here in New York. I don't know where else they've launched it. A couple markets here and there, but I get about 30 megs by 30 megs, 30 megabits by 30 megabits up and down on LTE, and it's very promising. When you think about the future of mobile connectivity, that we are able to get 30 megabits by 30 megabits, better than most places in this country, really, with cable, with a wired connection over this device here. So essentially, we could do whatever we're doing at home on our phone. We're not limited in that sense. I mean, obviously, you're limited with data caps, but it's progress, in my opinion. I think it's amazing that we could do 30 megabits by 30 megabits.
Period. I think that's great. I've never experienced it.
Yeah. Ichu has it in, he has it, XLTE. And I know that the speed is going to change. Like, I was in the city I was in Manhattan. I was getting 40, So it varies, but that's unbelievable speeds when you think about it. All right, Paul, that's it. That's it for today's What the Tech. Merry Christmas. It's 2 days away, and let's see what goodies we all get for Christmas. You can go to our website, gfqnetwork.com. You can subscribe to all our shows, including this one. We're everywhere podcasts are available. We're going to hang out and do the post show a little bit. Nothing crazy today. I got a little bit of a headache. I don't know what I'm going to be able to do. These headphones are killing me. You subscribe to us wherever our podcasts are available. You can follow Paul on Twitter @TheRod. You can follow me @AndrewZarian. If you want to help us out and support us, use our Patreon page. Fund us on Patreon, patreon.com/whatthetech. You could also help us out by using our Amazon link. Every time you make a purchase on Amazon, you use the link that we have on our website. It's on the top of the webpage. You could just go click there, or you could bookmark gfq.co/Amazon. That's gfq.co/Amazon. And every time you make a purchase, just click on the bookmark, and we make a couple bucks. That's it, guys. Merry Christmas, and we'll see you all next week.